The only laws will be those dictated in their realm of shadows by rulers, kings and emperors, and other powerful ones, as well as by the ones at the top of the God cult's hierarchy. Thus, this poison will reach every single human being and will poison him and force him into a delusional belief of a god. And this poison of the god cults will be the manifoldum spread around the world to such an extent that the human being will soak it up through the soles of his feet when traveling around the world. When the new time prophet begins with his work, then it will be the time when many human beings will watch all the happenings in the world with inactivity and insensibility. Many will sit there with crossed arms, and will walk around with empty eyes and deaf ears, without knowing what is going on around them and what they see and hear. They will have no more wise ones to educate them in knowledge and in wisdom, thus they will be like a smith without a smithy where they could forge their iron. And they will be like field workers who no longer have a field to till. Human beings will be like a seed, unable to find fertile soil to take root and sprout. They will lose hope and wander aimlessly around, humiliated and deprived of honor and rights. The youngest and the oldest will be homeless, and live their lives in misery and hardship on the street. The only way of salvation for many of them will be to terrorize and rob the fellow human being of his belongings, to deceive and to cheat him, or to go to war. And because of all their misery and hardship they will hate their lives, and viciously fight against each other. This will also be the time when human beings are threatened and afflicted by evils that come from animal diseases, and from the human being's wicked experiments, but also from the diseases of the water and earth. But the human beings will also rush with strange wagons into the sky, and will bring back deadly diseases to earth. And through war and terror, as well as through greed for power and unreasonableness, the human being will destroy a great deal of the earth. Yet he will let everything rise again, and will want to preserve everything that has escaped destruction. But it will be that a fear will see them human beings of the days that lie ahead, for they promise to be severe. But it will be too late for fear, for an enormous destruction will rage, and the earth will be covered far and wide with desert. And there will also be mighty waters that become deeper and deeper, and at certain times and days, the waters will flow violently to such an extent that, like a deluge, everything will be swept away, destroyed and annihilated, and the lives of innumerable human beings will be claimed. Through the human being's destructive rage, the air and sun will become poisonous and dangerous, and for this reason the bodies of the weak will be burned. When the prophet of the new time is born, a worldwide war will cause the earth to tremble, and will claim so many human lives as never before. From this time onward, wild waters will increasingly rise, volcanoes will cause enormous devastation, and earthquakes will shake many lands, and destroy large cities. The weather will assume apocalyptical proportions, and the number of human beings killed at these incidents will be uncountable. Therefore, everything that was not built under the guidance of the wise ones, or fitted with safety measures will be threatened and destroyed. Mountains will collapse, and mudslides on mountain slopes and in valleys will bury villages, animals and human beings and all their belongings, while at other places the ground breaks apart from deep within the earth. But the human being will not devote himself to wisdom, and will deny that the blame for very many of these incidents will be traceable to him. Therefore, he will continue to govern without reason and understanding, for he will be stubborn and obsessed with pride. He does neither listen to the warnings shouted at him by the prophet nor to the warnings shouted at him by the earth. Thus the evil will continue for a long time, and massive fires and tremors from the depths of the earth will destroy cities and villages. And it will be just like during a war, when in spite of the legions of soldiers, the poor and the barbarians will plunder all the belongings and treasures left abandoned by human beings. The eyes of the soldiers will be blind to the plundering, for they will be plunderers themselves and are up to abuse. When the prophet of the new time is born, artificial materials invented by human beings will reach the air and destroy its upper layers. Therefore the sun will burn the earth and afflict human beings with the black corrosion, causing many to die. The air will no longer be able to protect the earth and its life from the sun's heat and fire, for the air will be a curtain full of holes. Thus the sun's burning light will consume the human being's skin and eyes, and consequently, they will lose their eyesight, or die. Lakes and oceans will bubble and foam like boiling water, and rivers will dry up, and cities will be buried. Cities, villages, meadows and forests will fall victim to the human being's mania when he artificially dams up huge rivers and lakes in order to gain power. And he will not consider that by his actions he torments and oppresses the earth, which will defend itself through earthquakes, turbulent waters, raging volcanoes and violent storms of all kinds. Entire landscapes and countries as well as islands, and even entire continents, will disappear. But human beings will have only a short memory, thus they will flee to higher grounds, and will start to rebuild everything again. They will forget very quickly what has happened and will continue in their old ways. The human beings will let themselves be blinded by illusory images, which they awaken to become reality, so they believe to touch something that does not even exist. Thus they will walk on paths that only the eyes can see but not the mind and reason. And this path will be a dream that will become reality. Therefore, the time will come when human beings will no longer be able to distinguish between what exists and what does not. Many false labyrinths will open up to them, in which they go astray and get lost. Many god cults and groups thereunder will form, and they will lead the believers into delusion and exploit them. And those who are able to devise and awaken all these illusory images for the human beings will deceive and cheat the fools and credulous ones, and play an evil game of deception with them. Indeed, there will be many human beings who become enslaved to the illusory images of the god cults and their hierarchy, and become dependent on them, and consequently, they will be like submissive dogs. When the time of the new prophet has arrived, the number of human beings will grow increasingly and become uncountable. The human being will no longer beget descendants in the natural way but will intervene in the woman's capability of becoming pregnant and of bearing and giving birth to descendants. Thus the human being will create new human beings from the human being's infinitesimal parts, and he will do the same with animals. Human beings and animals will cry out for large amounts of special foods and meat, and species of the same kind will eat each other when human beings transform the flesh and bones of human beings and animals into fine substances for the production of feed. And as the animals will eat their own kind through this process, the human being will consume his own parents and siblings when eating the meat of animals. Animals will no longer be under the protection and care of human beings, for human beings will breed animals in large numbers under degrading conditions, and finally slaughter them in a miserable manner. The human being will alter animals according to his will, and also create hermaphrodites from them, inflict unending pain on them, and not care about their never-ending suffering. The human being will intervene in the animal's nature, and shape them to his liking. He will change the laws of life, and in doing so he will also change himself. The human being, who formed out of his origin a life form of progress, will no longer be the image of himself but a creation of terror. And terror will also be a reality for the human being's children, for terror, poison and hopelessness will lie in wait for them, for the human being will want children only for himself and as his personal property, and no longer for the sake of life and the children. Many children will become only a commodity, and their bodies will be sold for work, fornication and self-enjoyment. Others will be hounded, tormented, beaten and killed by their own parents and siblings, or by child abusers who are degenerated in the worst form of inhumanity. But even those children who are protected by their own parents and siblings will be threatened. And they will be lacking in thoughts and feelings, and will be without knowledge, for they will live in a world of illusory games and images that will seduce them, because no master stands at their side who could instruct them in knowledge and wisdom. Thus nobody will teach the children to hope and to act, and to turn towards the knowledge of the real truth. Therefore, the human being will be arrogant and consider himself to be the creation, although he will never be any more than what he was at birth, namely a human being.